Here we are. We're live. And this is a little bit odd because you and I were just talking on a completely different stream. What just happened, Phil?
So Stephen, hi everyone. We've just done some energy clearing, and this is one of my favourite things to do with people, I think, because it is so physical, and I love it when people have a reaction to my work. But also I love it when I can see it. Do you know what I mean? So, Stephen, what did just happen? Talk me through your experience of what just happened.
My experience, for those of you, anybody that's watching this, so energy clearing as a phrase doesn't really mean much to me. I think sort of imagine what I think it would be. But we came on a call. I'm going to describe this for somebody else who might want to do it, right? We came on a call, just a normal Zoom, and then you told me a little bit of background just to preamble. And then you guided me. You asked me a load of questions to try and, I guess, figure out where I might have tension would be the word I use. I'm not sure that's one you used. Where in my body there might be energy that's trapped that needs clearing. You explained that it's kind of related to chakras and Chinese medicine and things like that. And then once you'd figured out where I needed help, and in my case, we talked about joy and we talked about abundance, didn't we? Or was that right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And then I closed my eyes and you guided me, and it changed at different times to like put my hands in places like that. And sometimes it was the left hand, sometimes it was the right hand. Close my eyes, and you gave me a phrase to run through my head. And sometimes it was a statement, sometimes it was a question. And then I ran that through my head and experienced stuff. That's what happened. And then about like 5 minutes before we came on here, we had a quick chat about what this means. And here we are.
And how are you feeling now?
I feel amazing, actually. I feel a bit odd. I've got to be honest. I feel a little bit strange, but it was, like you said, a physical. I feel like I've been through something physical, and all I was doing, in theory, was sitting there with my hands in different places thinking. But I feel like I've just done a workout.
And if you're watching this and you've got any questions, please just comment in the chat as well. But yeah, it is. It's like a workout, I think, but it's shifting things within you. So it's shifting that blocked energy. And what happens is we store everything within our bodies. We experience something, it happens in your mind, and then you store emotions in your body, don't you? So it's things like trauma, all that kind of thing gets stuck. And it drags you down and it stops you from doing things. And the reason I asked the question is because I want to make sure I do the right kind of practice on you that's going to help you personally, because everybody's different and they've been through different things. What I found interesting, though, was when I said to you, I'm going to do the joy code on you first, and you had that reaction. Why do you think that was?
So, I don't mind like opening up about these kinds of things, but I probably 12 years ago decided to go and walk into a therapist's office, and I worked with her. She's called Karen. She's amazing. Worked with her for like 18 months, and then sort of life things got in the way, and we stopped working together. And then about a year ago, just over a year ago, I reached out, and she'd actually moved to a different part of the country. It took me a while to track her down. And we started working again. And the reason that I reacted like that is because that is a recurring theme, is my inability to basically just enjoy myself, to think I'm allowed to just have fun. Fun is like the way that we tend to code it. But here's something that's funny. So I have here, and I've carried this around with me for ages as a reminder, a little toy car. And she gave me this about 12 years ago. And we got down, she came in one session with a pile of them, like 20 of them. And we got down on that, and we played with toy cars on the floor together, and she gave me one to keep. And it sits there as a reminder to have fun. So what made me smile was, like, in just a small number of questions, you got to something that I've been working on for like a decade.
And when I did that, the energy clearing with you for the joy code, the first one, how did you feel? What happened?
So I felt there was a kind of, right. So right from the start, almost before we even started, I felt like I had a ball in my throat. It was like really, it's like a big, like a golf ball stuck in my throat. And as we did the first one, that just became more and more intense. And you kind of like instructed me to lean into that feeling, to not ignore it. And then it transformed a little bit and it started to shift up, but it got to about there and just wouldn't go any further. And then I think that was, did I talk when I said my breathing got faster? Was that then?
No, that was in the second one.
I was in the second one.
Yeah. You said you wanted to scream.
Oh yeah. Raw. It was raw. I was like, I want to get something out. I didn't, but probably should have done. What would you have done if I just started roaring?
I would have just trusted the process.
Okay.
No, everyone's different. So what I do when I do the energy clearing is I sort of speak through with my clients how they can kind of carry on, embody it almost afterwards. So I've suggested Stephen to just go and stand in a wood at some point this weekend and just scream.
Yeah.
Because we take so much stuff on, especially as coaches, that we can't necessarily talk about, and we carry stuff, I think, as people also within our bodies. And the throat, traditionally, when you're having, say, no, I'm doing it now, a ball in your throat, that's something that's being left unsaid. So what I'd advise you to do as well is to perhaps try and maybe have some difficult conversations that need to be had. Really one that you can think of in the nicest possible way. And obviously you have to think that through, but yeah, we all react differently. And then the second one that I did, the abundance code, is all about you being able to enjoy abundance within your life as well and within your business. So I think you had really interesting, I could physically see you. Actually, it was in the joy one. I could see you scrunching your face up when you were doing it.
Yeah.
It looked like you were about to cry.
Yeah. That was interesting because I know what you mean. I could feel it. My face was sort of tensing up, and I'm not sure. I didn't feel like I was going to cry actually, but I think I said to you, it felt like almost like I don't know. I'm not quite sure what that was, but I never felt like I was going to. It wasn't emotional in that sense. It was. I think it was more related to just this feeling, like just make it stop. I don't want this feeling. It was like that. So yeah, that's where it was going with me. It's interesting. Something I would say is like through the process, and we'll talk more about it. It's a quite intense feelings, even more we've not talked about yet. But I felt very safe.
Yeah. I hope that I would provide safe space for all my clients, but it's I think you have to trust yourself a bit with it. And I said to you, didn't I, beforehand, that I don't question how this works. I have no idea how it works. I mean, God's sake, I used to work in the city in a bank, and I'm doing this kind of stuff now. But because I've allowed myself to just lean into the other stuff that we probably limit ourselves and might, if you don't know about this kind of thing, go, what are you talking about? Energy clearing, seriously. But if you trust yourself in that process, that just see what happens, see what comes about in the whole process, and it could have a really positive benefit. That's the thing. So I've had it that clients will go away and they'll come back after they've done stuff like this and they go, you'll never guess what happened. Somebody that I've been like thinking about for ages, who I'd love to work with, they've got in touch with me and they want to do some one-to-one coaching. It's just being open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Open to possibility, open to opportunities, and just being open to what could potentially happen. And I love it.
Can I ask you a question? Like, because you and I've like talked quite a lot over the last few months, and we've done a couple of these, which are on YouTube. Go and watch him. Phil's amazing. That you've suggested it 3 or 4 times, I think, and it was only when we talked on Monday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, come on then, let's do it, and then let's talk about it. And I had this kind of like resistance to it. What did you see in the times when you were suggesting it to me? What do you suspect is going on there?
I think part of that might be your old corporate head thinking, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go, but I see resistance. So we all have, it's our brain. We don't like change. We don't like opening ourselves up to what could potentially be. And I think a lot of the time that this stops people from actually leaning in, just doing the work, doing the stuff that they know that they need to do. So there's like 3-step process to change. First of all, you have the extent. I'm sure I've said this to you before. Sorry, my dog's barking, which obviously you can hear. The first part is the external. So you have to get your thoughts out of your head. So you make lists about what you need to do, and you might use a system or a CRM or whatever. The second part is actually prioritizing what it is that you need to do, the process itself. And the third part, this is why nobody makes a change, because you then have to overcome resistance.
Yeah.
And that's a psychological process in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So underneath it all, I think from where you're concerned, there's some core beliefs that you might be slightly scared of or afraid of, that you don't want to open your eyes up to, that stopped you from wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
It does, yeah. And I think so. I am pretty open to the woo stuff, as you know, and it depends on what it is. So I don't really necessarily need to know how things work. I don't really bother me, because I think if it's useful, then that's great. I think I said to you the other day when we talked about it, because you asked me like, what's the resistance? And I always try to just not overthink the answer to questions like that. Just go, right, okay, try and be honest. Don't filter, and trust that somebody with your expertise is going to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's take the next step. And on this occasion, I think I said fear of success, which is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people are familiar with the idea of fear of failure.
Yeah.
But fear of success is a weird one.
Yeah. But you see this time and time again, and it's why we don't take action, because we kind of go, well, hang on a minute, what happens if this works?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh God. And what if it does work? If you do become successful, change has to happen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that stops us.
Yeah.
Because it's uncomfortable, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I talk about this in like different ways with a lot of my clients about quite often through the lens of like transactional analysis, for example, which is it's quite a different thing. But something that comes to mind for me there is that I'll often say to them, like, if you change your behavior, the people around you, even the people that you love, aren't necessarily going to like that.
Yeah.
And the reason is that you then change in their eyes. That's uncomfortable. So even though you might be making something better, let's say you've got a pattern in a relationship that's not healthy, and you adjust yourself such that it becomes more healthy, the other person might not want that. They won't be thinking this, but it just feels more uncomfortable to step into a space you're not used to than to stay in a place that's rubbish, right? And that's what's coming up is like, for me, I think, right, I then at the end of the session told you something that I've never told anybody, which is interesting, about what my plans are. We're just going to have to tease that because for practical reasons, I can't actually tell people.
I wasn't going to mention it.
But isn't that interesting that this is going to be awful for people watching? Is like, what's he talking about? What's he talking about?
We'll have to do another live.
Yeah. Oh, there's a great comment there from Nicole. We've got a comment from Nick and then from Nicole. So Nick says, the description of sensations in the throat has made me think. Love to know what it made you think, Nick. And Nicole, who is I know Nicole a little bit, and he is, I believe, a therapist. The familiarity of the stuckness keeps us stuck. Yeah, it's that. Yeah. I know what it's like to be this. I know what it's like to, achieve this level of abundance.
Yeah, I've got a great quote for you. Jen Sincero. She's written like a bit of money books and stuff. It's like, the walls of your comfort zone are lovingly decorated with all your favorite excuses.
Oh, got me.
Because we're conditioned, aren't we? And it is entirely down to other people. Our beliefs quite often come from things that we've heard.
Mm-hmm.
That only comes from other people. It's not you. Yeah. And what we do then is you form a belief first, and then you look for evidence that supports it.
Yeah.
So when you change, and this is one of the things that I do with my clients as well, is when you change that belief, you think up a new belief, and then you look for evidence to support that belief instead. And a lot of the time when you begin to change, people around you be like, oh, hang on a minute, what's that all about? We take that evidence and then we go, oh, no, that's not very nice. I'm going to stop and stay here.
Wow. Oh, now you're doing mind coach on me.
Yeah. But it's powerful, isn't it? We don't want to change. It's uncomfortable, so we don't do it. And it's the emotional cycle of change. So you're sat in that valley of despair. You at the moment, Stephen, pushing through the resistance.
Yeah.
And once you get to the other side, that's when the excitement happens. That's when magic happens.
Yeah. I feel like I've been through enough of these sort of, they're not even cycles, are they? It's almost like level. To me, I sometimes use the analogy because I've got this program that I call Next Level You, when I'm trying to explain it to people. Sometimes people, when they come to the end of it, they get a bit worried that when the program ends, it's like they're going to slide back to what went before. And the way I explain it is I say it's a bit like one of those platform games that you get in the computer, where if you imagine what they're like, and I don't really play computer games, but this analogy's worked a few times, is you always come in a door in the bottom left, don't you? And then you start bouncing up and down on these platforms or whatever, and you slip back and you try and jump on the thing, but you can't, and you go back to the beginning and you keep doing it, and then eventually you get to the platform at the top right and you go through the door. And then you're at the bottom left again, but you're never going to go back through that door. And I've been through enough of those like doors that I've even known this week that I've been feeling a bit like I can't quite make myself do the things that I need to do. I can't quite figure out what I want. I can't quite, I'm just a little bit rubbish.
Yeah. Well, it's self-sabotage, isn't it?
Yeah. But I also know that it'll come, that if I get out of my own way. So I took a day off yesterday, went to Manchester to see my son and a friend. And last night I just laid on the sofa and didn't do anything, just didn't force anything. And then had this amazing session with you. And I just kind of trust that if I don't run away from it, that at some point there's something's going to click, and then we go again.
And that's probably because you've done the work on yourself that you've done with your clients. This is what I've done as well. And I know that the only way to make this happen is to just stick with it.
Yeah.
It has to be the only way through. I'm sure there's another quote there, but yeah. It's not comfortable. It's not necessarily nice, but if you want change to happen, and quite often self-sabotage will show up as procrastination, criticism, all that kind of thing, because you just can't do the work that you know that you need to do.
Yeah. There's that whole Stephen Pressfield thing, isn't there, who wrote The War of Art, and he talks about resistance, that it's a physical force in the universe, like gravity, that but it doesn't. It shows up in disguise, and the kinds of things that you just said. It's like self-sabotage, procrastination, whatever. But if you can recognize that it's there, and he says that essentially it's there to keep things as they are.
Yeah.
So it's, it's not necessarily an entirely negative thing. It just is to keep things as they are. So if you're going to make a thing yourself, something different, you have to first push through resistance, and then guess what? There's a different resistance, and we're just going to keep going. But that's the game.
I need to read this book because you mentioned it a few times, but I think there's also a concept from that is that you go pro. So when you sit down to do your work, whatever it is, you don't show up as an amateur, you just do it properly.
Yeah.
And if you have that mentality that you're going to sit down and just get the stuff done, and then obviously use the external systems to support you, then change can happen.
Absolutely. Can I ask a question like this? We didn't really introduce ourselves at the beginning, do we? I think people, presumably they've signed up because they either follow you on LinkedIn or they follow me on LinkedIn, but we're both coaches, but we've both got complementary approaches, I would say. We're both actually properly trained, I'm an executive and leadership coach. What's your qualification?
I've got a PG cert from Birkbeck, so part of UCL in coaching. Yeah.
So we're not all woo. We're like actually trained to do this stuff with executives and professionals and founders and leaders of all sorts, right? And that's what we do. So this is like a small part of your practice. And I know that you do this stuff that we've talked about before, like the mind coach thing. How would this fit within your wider body of work?
My whole approach to my work is built upon this thing that I do called the belief cycle. So it's scientific, it's backed by science. It's basically the cognitive triangle, and I've added stuff onto it. So your thoughts influences your feelings and your energy. That's where it fits in, which impacts your decisions and actions. So if you imagine you're going down a dark lane late at night and there's a cat in the bushes up ahead. Now you can either think, oh, it's just a cat, or you can think, oh my God, someone's going to jump out from the bushes and attack me. So if you felt it's just a cat, you'd feel fine, you'd walk on. If it's the second one, you'd feel scared, nervous. And it's that within your body, you feel it, you physically know your heart gets quicker, you feel anxious, you might go clammy. It's all joined together. Then you have a different action, whether you keep walking or you run away. With my belief cycle, your actions then impact your outcomes and your life experiences. And what I want from my clients is to change different points of that cycle. So change the thoughts, change the beliefs, change your feelings and your energy, and you have completely different life experiences because you can't not. It's scientifically proven.
Yeah.
Just imagine, the days that you have when you wake up and you think, God, it's going to be an amazing day. The sun is out. And everything goes right. And then you have those times when you wake up, you stub your toe. Things happen one after another. And it's because you're looking for that evidence, because you have this rubbish start to the day. Oh, it's going to be an awful day today. And you can imagine it. Oh, things happen in freeze. What else is going to happen? And surely something else will go wrong.
Yeah.
And it's all, I give my clients the tools and techniques to change that belief cycle so they have different outcomes and life experiences. Mind Belief Blueprint is designed to just help people get out of their own way.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm doing this, by the way. I'm just holding my hand up because I've got this camera there. Right, watch. I'll show you just quickly. If I do that, and I did it by accident, and then I move, the camera moves. So I was just stopping it again. It's like I need to not wave my hands around because I move the camera. But that I find that your approach like absolutely fascinating because it's so much more than mindset, which absolutely has its place. I don't want to rubbish that at all. But I feel like you're helping people to re-engineer the way that they're they think about themselves in a way that is sustainable. And I don't know enough about it, so I don't want to be overly critical, but we're just like exploring ideas in public here, aren't we? But sometimes I think with the mindset stuff, and maybe if people are just dipping into it, it's a little bit like that idea of looking for motivation, and motivation doesn't work, because motivation like comes and goes and it wanes with exactly what you said. You wake up, some days you feel motivated, others you don't. Whereas being consistent is something that kind of works, and it feels a little bit like that in your approach. Like I know you're sort of rewiring people.
Yeah, and it's all based. I mean, it's neuroplasticity, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how you wire your brain, and the reason that I feel passionately about it is because of my son, which had a stroke when he was a baby, and he's 100% better, and that is all neuroplasticity, how you rewire. And the thing that drives me is I wish I'd knew this stuff when I was in my job. I wish I'd taken things in a different way. And it all comes down to having the belief and control over your actions and decisions.
Yeah.
To make that change. But I mean, we do similar things, don't we?
We do, but you're like more scientific than me.
But I'm one of those people that I have to pick at things. I love ideas. I'm so curious that if I find something out, I'm like, actually, how can I help? Can I use this to help my clients? And so things like, in your brain, you have this information filter, which is called the reticular activating system, which I commented on your post the other day. And it looks for stuff that you tell it to. And I wish more people knew this, because if you're looking, we have a negativity bias, so we naturally will look for the negative. But if you just trick yourself into looking for the positive stuff, that's why I'm saying with the energy clearing, being open to possibility, it's just mind-blowing what you can achieve. If you think you're going to have a good day, you will. It's that simple.
I think we didn't quite tell the story about the second bit of my experience today, because I really want to tell people about that, and then I want to ask another question about how people can access what you do, if that's okay. And then maybe I need to lie down. But so in the second bit, sorry, I've forgotten what the prompt was on the second one. It was
serving.
Serving, yes. I had this incredible, it didn't start like this. So at first I had this sensation of awareness, I would call it, but I guess energy running up the back of my spine into through my spinal cord, through into the base of my brain, right? It was going vroom, 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 vroom. And then came back a little bit to the throat thing. But then, and you could see this happening to me, that my breath, so it was the opposite to the first thing. So the first thing, my breath shortened and I didn't feel anxious, but the breathing was like an anxious breathing. It was tight and it was short. This time, my breath slowed right down and it became like a full body breath. Like if you were doing Wim Hof or whatever like that, it'd be saying like breathe right into the base of your stomach and then so everything was expanding. The whole of my torso was expanding. And I felt this power, this surge of strength and potential energy was the phrase that I think I used to you, wasn't it? It was like I just felt this, and we had to stop because the time was up, and I was like, I did not want that to stop. I wanted more of that. What was going on there, Phil?
I'm hoping it's just that, like the limiting stuff, the stored energy being released. So if you're my client, I'd be saying to you, look, what can you do this afternoon to really harness that?
Yeah.
What could you make happen? Maybe something you've been putting off or something that you want to think through.
Yeah.
How could you use that energy and use that power to really impact you positively today? And how does that feel as well? So what we do, how we make sense of the world, is we take information into our brain through our 5 senses, use our experiences and memories to filter that information, and then we pass that into our body and do what we need with it. So can you store that feeling? Maybe write it down, maybe take a video of yourself about how you're feeling, and use that as evidence when you're having those moments that, oh, this is difficult, this is hard. I'd shut your eyes and reflect back on that feeling and know you've got that trust in yourself.
I just had a moment of like, oh, wow, here, right? So you as a coach, you're about to get some like feedback, which is like, you know, when your client goes, oh my God, like breakthrough. So
this is an aha moment.
Yeah. So I have always been very good in a crisis, right? I have a capacity for calm when it's a bit like that poem, if you know, when everybody's losing their heads. You know, I have always had that. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And it's been consistent. And however, I became aware, I guess, a few years ago, and started to question: do I look for trouble? Because then I can perform, you know. So am I kind of like, I would like leave things, not do them. So then it has to be done in a rush. And then I get that feeling that I create the crisis, you know, and not to a very extreme extent, but I think that was probably the case for a while. Then, you know, my story is I worked with a coach and then realized that the path I was following probably wasn't going to lead to things that I wanted. And then I, you know, long story short, I end up doing this kind of thing. And what I just realized was that sensation was generating that energy, the crisis energy, the power that I feel but not in a crisis.
Interesting. What do you think that means?
I think it means that if I can harness that, right, and not create just, well, what the hell can I achieve? You know, what could I do? What this idea that we're trailing that I'm not talking about, like, what if I step into that? It felt very masculine, I have to say, as well. Don't think I said that to you before. I felt very powerful in a good way. You know, not in an aggressive way, not in a bad way, just like, you know, that phrase, stepping into your power.
Yes.
That.
So I almost want for you to kind of imprint that onto your mind. And what you can do, you know, that car that you've just showed me?
Yeah.
Take that into your hand and feel that sensation of that power, the masculinity, your control over it, and really imprint it into that car. Because every time that you see the car or the pickup, I'm trying to look for something that I can show you. I've got some green nail varnish on my desk. So every time you pick that up and you squeeze it, you remember this moment. Because as I said, your brain works from memories. That's how it organizes information.
Brilliant. Doing it. I can feel it. I can feel the feeling coming back, and it is, I was nearly, am I allowed to, I'm going to swear. Bloody amazing. I love it.
I love that. And the thing is, everybody has a different reaction.
Yeah.
But I think what matters is how you use that.
Oh. And there's more. The more I do that, this is going.
The throat?
The throat's going. The more that I allow that feeling to like come up, it's like generating energy from within, like a very powerful, very positive, physical feeling. Wow. You're good.
Thank you.
Another observation, I guess, is that I guess you could do a practice like this. You know, you could do something like this, couldn't you? But the skill of being with a practitioner who knows, like you've guided me. We've done it live, which is really interesting, isn't it? But we could have done this privately. I'm quite happy to do it live. It's the whole reason why we did this.
Most people wouldn't necessarily want to because you're special, Stephen.
I am. Yeah, unusual. So let's. right, brilliant. I think we should probably draw this to a close, but the thing that I wanted to ask you, and maybe we'll have a look at the comments again as well when we finish, is that obviously the way we're talking about this, you're working with me one-to-one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also know you've got like a group program.
Yes.
So I presume it's part of that as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And right, not just this, but the whole mind coach thing.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work in business? Like how does if I was like a HR person, or I was like looking for some help with my team or whatever, what would you do? Because you've got to spread this.
I think the underlying thing in business is that you want people to be happy at their work. You want them to be engaged, but also want to have fun with what they're doing, be more productive, be more focused. And essentially, if they're happy, they're going to make the company better, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the reason I said earlier on, I wish I knew this stuff when I was in the organisation that I worked for. So I worked for a FTSE 100 bank in the city, Standard Chartered. I was so blocked to all of this stuff. I just didn't really, I didn't give it the time of day. And I wish that I had, because I think I would have completely changed my career trajectory, because I would have, it's my dog, I would have believed in myself more. I would have told myself different things. So it can range from even just standing up to doing a presentation. Lots of people hate public speaking. I'm not one of them, because I think I've trained myself, told myself, got the energy around it. I support myself. But lots of people hate that, and it holds them back in their work. Or they don't speak up in meetings because they have the fear of not being enough. Whereas if they talked a bit more, somebody else might get to know them, their networks would get better, they have more opportunities available to them. It's a no-brainer. And that's why I do the work that I do now, so that people can take some of this stuff, even if they work in a corporate, and change their lives. So I've got 6 ladies doing my current cohort program, and 2 of them have got new jobs within the last month.
That's not a bad percentage there, is it? And
it's entirely up to them as well, obviously. It's nothing to do with me. That's the belief that they have in themselves and looking for the opportunity.
Yeah. And being guided, so it's a walking alongside, isn't it? And, for a period of time, you're helping somebody on that, helping them break through to the next level. So I'm not trying to pitch my thing, but, and I've just put your website address there if people want to find out more, because let's just run it down. You do one-to-one, you do
one-to-one. I do speaking. I talk around success mindset, habits. I have just been nominated as Speaker of the Year at the Women's Business Awards. But basically, I just love the sound of my own voice.
Well, you've got a talent for it, and also a lot of training and a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge.
A lot of training. Used to work in the city. Retrained like you, because it wasn't lighting me up, and this does. It really does.
Right. Let's just have a really quick look at the comments then. So Nick's put a few down. Thanks, Nick. Rejoice that you had such a trust in that you were able to disclose your longer term plan, your secret. Yeah, thanks, Nick. And the reinforcement of that feeling feels like an NLP technique. I don't know much about NLP myself, but
yeah, it is neuro-linguistic programming, isn't it? So it's scientific. You do it, it's going to work. It's brilliant.
Yeah, amazing. Right, I definitely need to have a lie down. Thank you so much, Phil. Can we do this again? This is
maybe we should do it after I've done some more of the energy clearing on you.
Maybe, we'll see what happens next. Yeah. But this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that's watched as well, and the comments from Nicole and Nick. I really appreciate that. So good, says Nick. Yeah, Phil is amazing. So Nick, by the way, get in touch with Phil. Sounds like you could do with a
I do energy clearing sessions separately as one-offs as well, so that's quite a really affordable way to experience it as well.
I would definitely recommend it. So there we go. Right, let's leave it there. Thanks, Phil.
Stephen, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.